Yoga's asana is physical, but the practice is spiritual.
How do you make movement prayer? How do you make movement connection and embodiment?
You get all this on your little mat. I don't need you to be in my space. I need you to hold space. The energy is then guiding instead of me trying to manipulate my body into shapes. If you keep asking, who am I? You're going to get the answer.
They're sitting still, but the movement of the mind is just, it doesn't stop.
On a path towards knowing yourself, you hopefully will ask that question. You're building your own sense of self and the willingness to get to know yourself.
Welcome to the Vitalist podcast, where healing meets wonder. This is your space to gain transformative knowledge, deepen your mind-body connection, and awaken your human spirit. If you're ready to connect with your innate potential, embrace life's challenges, and expand what you believe is possible, this is the place. Get ready to slow down, be moved, and live like a true vitalist.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Vitalist podcast. I'm Dr. Keiko, and I have a very important guest today, Jenn Chiarelli.
I love it.
Right? The Italian. It's Chianti. Most people call you Chiarelli.
Yes.
But it's Chiarelli.
It is.
Chianti. Okay, good to know. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation. I've wanted you on the podcast for some time, and I was so shy about asking. Yeah, because you're a big teacher in the community, and I've had amazing experiences in your class.
I can't wait to hear.
I know, which you probably don't even know about, but we'll dive into that as well. And I'm just curious about the background with ballet. I kind of want to start there because that's your movement background. And so what did you experience in ballet, and how did you transition from ballet into yoga?
I think movement, I didn't maybe even realize that it was the way that I expressed my energy as a kid. But I started maybe in second grade with ballet, and some friends of mine were going to take ballet, and they just mentioned it, and I was like, well, I want to go. And I had no idea that maybe I had talent, but luckily I had a teacher who was like, oh, she has some potential. And through that, I think just the encouragement, someone kind of spotting talent that maybe you didn't know you had, and then saying, oh, you need to pursue this a little bit further. And it was just the, I guess, self-expression of moving your body with music, because I loved music, and then having something that, oh, I'm good at this. And it just continued. Then I started performing on stage, and I fell in love with performing and the Nutcracker, and everyone got into it. My whole family got into it. So it was a wonderful way to express. And I think that's what I needed. I mean, looking back, of course, that kind of self-expression. And then it had a very organic life. And, then I had ballet teachers who were professional saying, oh, well, she could go pro. And my parents were like, oh, she's going to go to college. My dad was like, yeah, she's going to go. And then my ballet teacher, who was, a prima ballerina, she danced with the Joffrey Ballet, and she danced in Italy as a prima ballerina. She said, no, if she wants to do this, we have to be serious about her doing this. So that's the kind of the way I continued, and I graduated high school early, and I joined the Washington Ballet's second company. It was called the Young Dancers of Washington Ballet. So that's kind of how ballet happened. And then yoga happened when I realized, the career was not going to last forever, and we all have to know that as ballerinas. So I started practicing yoga with some friends. I started with the Ashtanga primary series, and I was shocked at how weak I was in my upper body. Because ballet, you've got these legs, you're dancing on point, these calves, you're jumping. But then the upper body is supposed to be lithe and ethereal. But then I was also, I had already been on a spiritual path since I was 8 years old. But I think at the time I was going to a spiritual center. And I met another wonderful woman who was teaching hatha yoga at the center. And so I started practicing with her, which was much more nurturing and loving. And I was like, oh, yoga can be this way also. And so that's when I started to find the balance between intensity, because ballet is intense and Ashtanga is intense. And I think it was just my wheelhouse to go into something so disciplined, which was Ashtanga. And then this woman was teaching me poses that in primary series I hadn't learned. And so she just showed me a different side of yoga. And yoga was like, well, maybe I could teach yoga. It was kind of just a thought, And in the summers we had off from ballet, and I was like, I'm going to do a teacher training. So this was back in 2003, where I went to Costa Rica.
God, who'd you do your training with?
It was called the Nosara Yoga Institute.
Okay, I've heard
Dawn
of that.
and Amba Stapleton.
Okay, we have to break down a little bit with yoga. Just for people, most people are familiar with it. I would say a majority of people just look at it as like a workout, a sweat class, which we'll get into as well. But how would you distinguish if Sarah has never been to a yoga class? How would you gear her into, okay, there's different types of yoga. Look for one that resonates with you.
I think the challenge is just going, and just because it's an experience, you can tell, just like a spiritual path, you can tell people, you can read books, but until you put yourself in there, like this is the practice of embodiment, right? To go in and to experience, what does this feel like? And maybe the first time you go to a teacher, you're like, I didn't like that. Don't stop, right? Because that's one teacher's perspective, and maybe that particular teacher is on more of a fitness base, and then you'll find someone like me who's more spiritual fitness. We have both, right? Yoga's asana is physical, but the practice is spiritual.
What did yoga do for you that ballet didn't?
Ballet is highly criticized. So even though it's an art form, and eventually you're on the stage. That's why dancers love the stage, because there's no one saying, stop. You're not in a rehearsal. You can't stop. It's like this beautiful form of presence. The huge difference was I wasn't being criticized. I was just able to be in my body, and it wasn't about the performance. It was about feeling and what's going on and what's coming up for me, and why is this making me cry, and why is this I feel so empowered, and you get all this on your like little mat. And so all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, it's all coming from me.
Was there a memorable class or teacher or moment where you were moving through an asana or a pose and something hit you, like the essence, the prana, the chi, whatever you want to call it? Like, what was that experience for you?
During my teacher training, and it was just so beautiful because we were outside. It was an open air shala, and it was Costa Rica, so it was moist, and there's like rain, and there's, beautiful nature and monkeys in the trees, and it was just like you were in Earth Mama, like you were in the womb, the water, like you could go to class and then go swim. So I was in heaven because I'm a beach person. So I think during the training, it was rigorous. So there were so many poses that were nothing that you would think would crack you open, right? Like you think, oh, the hard poses, but the hard poses, you're in your head. It was like the subtlety, like the subtle movements. He called them movement inquiries, which I thought were so cool. And his manual was just so beautiful. And a lot of them were just simple movements. And I remember being really sweaty and doing one movement. And he just had you doing it over and over and over. And I just started like hysterically crying. And, surprised, but also like in an environment that was inviting that. So willing to go there. And I was like, oh, there's so much in here, so much that I held with ballet. You're holding so much, you mask so much, you put on your makeup, you go on the stage, and it was like this falling apart that was so necessary. And another thing, I felt my neck just one day, I was on the ground, they were all very grounded, and I moved my head and I felt zing down right from my neck all the way to the base of my spine. And I was frozen because I'm like, I'm paralyzed. I had a lot of fear. And then I was like, because it was hot, Kundalini, of course. Didn't know that at the time. And then finally I was able to move again. And I was like, oh my God. So just these little subtleties in the container of safety.
Oh, I love that you say that, because you do need a safe environment in order to have that release, to let it come through you. And I love how you say cracked open. We actually say that in chiropractic school. Well, we crack, but we don't crack. But there's something that happens when we have that safety, and then we're connecting to the prana. We're connecting to the kundalini energy or the energy of the body. And then something just shifts and we open, right? And then tears, usually healing tears. And sometimes we don't even know what it's about. But I love what you said, something poured through you. And then you got to integrate it with the poses and your meditation practice.
And the breath work and the chanting, and he's playing a bowl. And I'm like, I can't stress enough. This is why I did when I led my teacher trainings, I did it in Costa Rica on the beach. And just that after you had that kind of cathartic release to be able to then go into the water, to go into the ocean and have the salt water, just literally, I tell people, Costa Rica is like the womb. I mean, I go there today. Every year we still go there. And I get in the water. I'm like, hi, old friend. It's so nurturing, And that's why I bring people there every year, because I feel like, how can I not share this with people? And I say, you're not here. And I say this to all my students, until you go in and go under. Not just go in, but you've got to submerge.
So what do you've been a teacher for how many years? This is
25?
25 years. That's a lot of life teaching and holding space for people. So how do you, as a teacher, hold space and cultivate the growth of, if someone is coming in just for the workout, what do you say to them? What could you encourage to, hey, feel your breath a little different or connect to these parts of the body or the energy?
There's not so much that you have to do. Because if you're a teacher that is embodied, hopefully you're on some kind of spiritual path that you're embodied, you walk in and you resonate that invitation for embodiment. So it's not so much like, do this, do that, because then it's me telling you, and then it becomes the ballet, the critique. Do this because you're doing something wrong. So you have to do something different. And I'm like, no. The invitation is, my yoga studio is the ocean, right? You're welcome to dip a toe in. And maybe today it's just a toe. And maybe that toe is like, ooh, there's something there. I want to come back. And then the next day you come back and I'm willing to go a little deeper. So it's building the safety with the student. Because I'm not going to throw you in the deep end if you don't want to go there, right? Then you're going to be like, oh, I hate this, So I think it's not so much of what I'm doing as what I'm hoping to embody, and then allowing or inviting the student to take as much as they want. I will encourage, I'll say, use the breath in this way, but I'll probably say the same thing 100 times. And then I will teach, and then, someone will do my teacher training and they're like, oh my gosh, I just heard this the other day from another teacher. And I'm like, I've been saying that forever, but you weren't ripe, right? But maybe someone gave you the space and helped you ripen so that whoever, it doesn't matter if it doesn't come from me, you got it. But I try to do it covertly and subtly.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be, for me personally, I don't want a teacher that's in my face. I don't want a teacher yelling at me. I don't want a teacher preaching. I can go take a fitness class. I don't need you to be in my space. I need you to hold space. And I think that's really important.
Okay, I want to get into the breath a little bit, because breath for me, meditation is what really allowed me to go deeper in practice, which we'll get to because I know you're deep with stillness and meditation. But when you're in a yoga class with the breath, can you break down how we can connect to our breath more, or how we can tune into our breath, just for someone who's very new to yoga?
Simply noticing that you're breathing. I think nowadays, sometimes in the West, we'll take something and we'll just take it too far. So breath work does not have to be. It can be all the things. But if you're moving with your body, first you just need to know, I'm breathing, right? So the simple cues of inhale and maybe feel the breath and where is it moving? Oh, into my chest, into my throat. Oh, maybe it doesn't move that far. There's a gentle and simple breath called Durga pranayama, which is long breath. And so you're just guiding people to slow it down and just to feel it. Inhale, exhale. Oh, maybe like, what is the temperature through the nostrils? Where do you feel it in your belly? And I think the simplicity of noticing, and we're not really good at that, right?
True.
Because we want something that we can like feel and sweat and manipulate. But the simplicity of just noticing breath, and then maybe we find an even breath, right? So we're breathing and maybe we add Ujjayi breath. It's so weird because I don't hear Ujjayi breath anymore, and I just don't even hear teachers teaching it anymore. And I'm like, oh, what happened?
Wow. Why is that?
I have no idea, because it's subtle.
It's so subtle. And that's what allowed me to, it's like my body was speaking to me through my breath when I started practicing Ujjayi. And this is known as the fog breath, right?
Yes, audible.
Yes.
And it's the constriction, and it's to warm the body, right?
Yeah.
To warm the breath. And then it gives you very ocean-like sound, right? It gives you this like metronome, right? You feel this beat, like the heartbeat. You feel something that's very organic. It's your breath. And if you can follow that, and maybe we lose it, but we come back to it and we follow the breath, then the breath, like prana, the energy, is then guiding, instead of me trying to manipulate my body into shapes. I'm following, it's more natural, the breath into the body. And it should be, hopefully, no shoulds, but the invitation to breathe first, right? And my classes always start, these days, I start on the earth as far down as possible. I used to start seated, but now it's like, get your body to the ground, because everyone comes in like so buzzy that even like 5 minutes of darkness, earthbound breath, just noticing your breath. I mean, that's going to be the way you start to meditate, is following your breath. And if we can follow the breath, right, with some discipline, with some awareness, then we can drop into that at any point, right? Driving in the car, dealing with your kids. Life, gets very fast, very furious. I teach people 2 hands in the center of the chest, close the eyes, and just take a simple breath like that. And like everyone could do that.
So simple.
And to feel not only the rhythm, but the heartbeat, the temperature of your hands, like just things to bring you back
inward. Yeah. I mean, this is interoception, for the nerve system. It's embodying the language of the body, because the body speaks to us. And when we're disconnected from her, we just move at that pace, and we're matching the energy or the tone of the environment. So I think it's a really beautiful way to use yoga and meditation to interocept or interreceive, right? The signals from the body. I want to go into meditation because you mentioned to me that you learned it at a very young age. Like you were reading Ram Dass.
Yes.
So let's back up to the origin of when
crazy.
did meditation enter your life? And then give me the journey that you've been on through learning meditation.
My dad and my mom, luckily, were on a spiritual path. First, through Christianity, I was Lutheran. My dad was Catholic because he's Italian, and then converted to be a Lutheran where it was a little bit more free. And they both taught like Sunday school, and I remember going to Sunday school, but it was like this relationship with God at a very young age. And my dad used to give me books, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, the Tao Te Ching, Ram Dass, Be Here Now. So he would give me these books, and there were these sheets on yoga, lion's breath. I remember he's like, just sit in 3 minutes in each one. I don't think I ever did them. I mean, he did have us candle gazing when I was about 3 or 4. So like sitting in the living room, listening to whatever we were listening to and staring at a candle. He wasn't a hippie though. He was an engineer. He worked on the lunar module. I found this out later because he never told us. But so he, I think, was very much an intellectual. So I think he needed that balance. And so, but then later, my mom was starting to give me books on Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and, You Can Heal Your Life. And so I was getting metaphysical, and then I was also getting Eastern. So, and I mean, I didn't realize what a foundation this was setting for me, you know, at such a young age.
Is there a book that stands out? Like it is your
Yes.
what is
Like,
Jenn's
oh my God.
book? I know it's hard to pick one, but
No, there's one. There is one. And it was Eckhart Tolle, Not the Power of Now, A New Earth.
Oh, A New Earth. Beautiful book.
I visited my mom in Taos, New Mexico. She was on a birthing retreat because she was at the time on a spiritual retreat, and someone broke into my car and stole my iPod. And so I had nothing. So she's like, "Oh, here, I have this book on CD." And I'm like, CD? But I was driving 8 hours back to Phoenix.
Right.
So I pop them in, and it's Eckhart Tolle with his, you know, his voice.
His voice, yes.
And I just listened to 8 hours of that book, and I was crying. I was like, what? It just was like ding, 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 ding. So many things, just chills. You know, you just felt it was the next step, you know? And so you ask, like, what is guiding me, right? Since 8 years old, like, what's been guiding me? I mean, it's a force, you know? It's not just like breadcrumbs. It was a powerful force that was just like, this is your next step. This is your next step. Here's the next book, you know, here. And then eventually I met my spiritual teacher. So I think if we're quiet, and that's really hard for most of us, but the more we sit and ask, like, who am I? Right? And that simple, it's like just like the breath. It's so simple, but it's so hard because we confront everything. If you keep asking, who am I? You know, you're going to get the answer. And sometimes you're not going to want the truth. So I think when we get lost, you have to just remember to get very still and sit with what surfaces, because it's giving you the answer, just like you say with the body, right?
Yeah.
Your body is telling you what it needs. And sometimes we ignore it and ignore it and ignore it, and it can't be ignored. So when you ask yourself, who am I? And you get shown, you can ignore it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You can push it down and let it fester and maybe not even in this lifetime say, nope, not going to do it.
Yeah.
There's no difference between your life and your spiritual life. They're the same. And so whatever you see in front of you is eat it up, because that's the digestion that needs to happen for you to continue on.
I mean, yoga can be a movement practice, but how do you make movement prayer? How do you make movement connection and embodiment? And do you think it's required that we need a meditative or a stillness practice to really get to the depths of what yoga allows us to do?
Yes. I mean, if we want to practice yoga for yoga, like for union, for enlightenment, then how can we not? If we want to do one part of yoga, then, I mean, my thing is it doesn't have to be called yoga. Just take a movement class. It can still, I'm not sure yoga is the right word anymore in the West, because it can't be divorced from the spiritual aspects. And if you want to, then it's just no longer yoga, which is I'm not saying like move the body. Thank God. Like move the body, because through the movement of the body, any movement of the body, like runners, you know, you get into ba, 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 breath, rhythm, and all of a sudden you have these divine insights. Beautiful. That could be called yoga. But I think the essence of the practice of yoga is for enlightenment, is for spiritual awakening, is to know thyself. So if we take that out, I can't teach and take that out. There's just no way. But if we do take that out, then I feel like it doesn't have the essence of what yoga is.
Yes, the essence. Love that. I'm curious if you're comfortable sharing, but was there a moment in your life where the trust in the body, you actually questioned it?
Oh, yeah. Injuries, any injury. They're there to wake you up, and they're trying to get you to notice. And we're trying not to notice. So it shows me personally when I get injured where I'm really not in control. where I think like, oh yeah, I'm leading this life. I'm leading this life. I'm leading this life. And it's like, oh, no, you're not. It's not I, but it's the individual. Is, my will might not be the direction I should be going. So it's like collecting me back in and saying, go this way. So it can be gentle or it can be really abrupt. But I've had many injuries and the healing time, like with my hip, I just had my hip replaced. You think you should heal quicker. You think you should be over it. You think you should be through it. And it's like, oh no, you're not done. And so it's the patience, slowing down and listening. What do I need to be looking at? What am I not looking at? What am I being shown? And that's the beauty is what you're being shown if you're still enough, though, because I think we can misinterpret. If I didn't have my meditation practice where I was emptying myself and sitting in the emptiness, then the insight can come in from a place of deep wisdom. But if I am buzzy, imagine like being buzzy all the time, that we might get an injury and think, oh, well, this is why I got it. I didn't do this more. And, it becomes something that you're fighting instead of something we surrender to.
Ooh, yes, the surrender piece. Because you can convince yourself of anything in the mind.
Oh my God. The mind is so,
I know. It is.
How powerful.
It is powerful. And I think surrendering and going under the mind, that takes practice. It takes practice to feel stillness. Because some people will sit and there is no stillness. They're sitting still, but the movement of the mind is just, it doesn't stop. So I'm curious, now that you're at this place in your life, how do you approach surrender? How do you approach these big things in life? Do you sit with them and, move them through the body? Like, how do you integrate and connect with the vital force of the body in a consistent way?
I love that you just said under.
Yes.
That's such a great way to think about stillness, because the buzziness and the stillness can coexist. And I think that's like the brain, like, what? What?
Wait, unpack that.
So we're having like this human experience. We've become embodied as an individual in form, and we're expressing maybe our karma and whatever we need to be learning. Life throws so many things at us or coming from within that we're experiencing, that underneath is this essence nature. When I'm in it, do not tell me that, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not in this space. Like when I was injured, luckily I knew I just had to shut everything down. I had to shut everyone out. I even my spiritual teacher, he knows, because I said, look, I just need to be inward.
Yeah.
I couldn't show up the way I was going to, or the way I needed to in my mind or whatever. I had to just heal. So it was different when I couldn't really meditate. I couldn't sit up and meditate because my hip, or I was ill, and you're laying there, So you can't do the regular practice, but that's okay. Because luckily, I've been doing this for a long time, there was a container. So when you're saying, like you just said so beautifully, to be under, that's you. That's the essence nature. And then the essence nature gives life to the mind, gives life to the body, gives life to our expression. But what's under that, and what you find, if you can sit, like you said, you sit in meditation, it's just, fine. That's the first layer, right? So as a meditation teacher, I would say, stay there. And it takes time, right? Like anything, to stay in the buzziness, to stay in the waves of the ocean. I'm going to bring everything back to the ocean. And then eventually the waves will subside, or maybe they won't, but you're going under them. And so then you can see that the mind is just part of the instrument that we're in, and then the energy is feeding the mind, right? So if you tap into the stillness, like you just said, underwater, right? You go there and you'll see the mind, and then you see the mind, and then you can ask at that moment, who's seeing the mind? Boom. Who's seeing the mind? How am I in two places at once? How am I here and then seeing the mind? Right? Someone says, oh, I have a monkey mind. Great. You're seeing that you have a mind. There's, and that doesn't mean there's two. It's just different layers of the one.
You can see, it's the observer, right? You are observing the mind.
But who is observing the mind,
exactly.
Right? And that's the question that hopefully we're asking. And maybe we're not, but I think on a spiritual quest, on a path towards knowing yourself, you hopefully will ask that question.
I just want to know how you feel essence in a deeper way. Like, do you start with the breath? Do you go into the bandhas? Do you go to a part of the body? Like, what's the quickest way you connect with your essence?
There are so many tools to get there. And luckily, I have so many tools because I've been doing it for so long. So it's different on different days. So like maybe one day, like I need to chant, like japa. So, everyone wears these beautiful malas. They're actually a tool, right? I used to teach a chant, and you use that, and it's a way to like, you can think of it as imprinting the mind, right? You have a chant, you have Sanskrit words, and you can understand what they mean. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha is Ganesh, and it's just this, you repeat it. So it's the repetition. So that's a good way. So there's tools, and all of the things are tools. Nowadays, I'll just, I'll just sit down on my mat, close my eyes, I light my incense, and I'm able to sit and, what they call drop in to a more steady state. Yeah. But I need the time, I'm a mom, I've got kids, I got this, so many things to distract you, but it's that plugging in that is vital for me to feel essence nature. And luckily it's not because of the years of training, right? Training the mind, like, oh, this is how we're going to get in.
Yeah.
It doesn't take so long.
I see.
But it used to. It used to take a long time.
Well, this is a practice. You've been doing it for how long?
For 25 years.
Yeah.
And sometimes, when I'm in a really bad place or where I'm buzzy, I always just call it buzzy, in my emotions or, in the body. Sometimes I'll sit and then I'll feel like nothing happened. I'll be like, well, that was a waste of time, but it's not. Right? Yeah. You'll sit and you just watch your mind. How awesome. You just sat and watched your mind. Yes. So it's like, you keep, putting the coins in the piggy bank, right? And you keep building. You're building your own sense of self and and the willingness to get to know yourself.
Pema used to say, or I guess she still says this, but Pema Chodron, she said sometimes the meditation is just the bell at the end. Because you're just like, finally, you've just been thinking the whole time, but you're right. You're still tuning in and you're still observing and you're still giving your space to kind of chip away at the iceberg and go under. Because I think just people get really frustrated and annoyed that they can't feel that stillness, but it takes time.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me like 4 days of silence to finally feel it. And so, yeah, I would equally agree just to encourage people, just have a sitting practice.
Yes.
Have a stillness practice.
I say 5 minutes. Like some people are like, I can't sit for 30 minutes. I'm like, fine. 5 minutes. Like, give me 5 minutes where you sit on the floor and or whatever, create your sacred space, but give yourself 5 minutes to close your eyes and just feel. That's it. And if we can't do that, then we have to really ask, do I really, you have to then say, okay, maybe I don't really want to know. And that's valid information.
It's an interesting point you make because practice is great, but the immersion, like when you went to Costa Rica, when I went to Thailand, like you are in a different environment and you actually give your mind time to kind of unravel and unwind so that you can get to that depth.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say it's a faster way to get there, but it is a great way to just set yourself up for success to finally feel that.
Yeah.
Because once you feel it, you can practice daily and get to that very quickly.
Yes.
But until you feel it, like you said, it's an experience.
Yes.
I'm curious, what is the hardest thing about being a teacher?
I am the mirror And sometimes the anger and the frustration just will come at me. And so that's something that I'm still learning to not take personally.
Would you say it's boundaries too?
It's me getting out of my own ego.
Ooh, so okay, if I'm hot and bothered and
Yeah.
I'm coming to you and I've got a lot of stuff going on and I'm just word vomiting all
Yeah.
my struggles onto you,
Yes.
do you feel like you need to have the answer? Is that the ego?
No, I need to hold space.
And what does that look like?
I need to let you vomit and know that it's not mine to clean up. And I just have to sit in a state of presence. So like a lot of times, like I'll send my teacher like this email of all the things that are happening and why I'm struggling and why it's his fault and he didn't do this and he's going to love this. And, a lot of times, he'll try to talk it through. Not, sometimes he tries to give answers, which are just not necessarily. But I remember it earlier in my time with him, along my practice, he would send me one word back in an email: surrender.
I love that.
Or open your heart. And then that would get you even more mad, right? Because you're like, you
Get mad with me.
Yes.
Come on, right?
But he would just say, surrender. And I'd be like, oh, shit. Right? Because that's the key.
Yeah.
So it's not my response. I'm not a therapist. I am not here to solve your problems. I'm here to point you in the direction of yourself. And I'm pointing you in the direction of yourself when you're inflamed. You don't want to look at yourself in that moment. But I'm going to still just be there.
Yeah.
Right? Like a woman giving birth, right? You're holding her. Right. My doula, she was so wonderful. She just held me. Sometimes she was like, all right, we're going to walk. We're going to walk until we can get this water to break. And I was like, I do not want to walk. I was like ginormous and I was exhausted and she's having me walk. And I just didn't want to do that. But she was there because she knew that my water would break on its own and I wouldn't have to be induced or whatever. So you have to have this sense of trust with your teacher. Like when you decide you want a teacher, the teacher shows up. And I think then you have to know that there's a sense of trust and you're guiding someone on a spiritual journey. You're not guiding them to be a better version of themselves. You're guiding on them to know who they are.
Yeah.
There's no bettering. You are, period. I always say you are. There's no ... You are.
Yeah.
And that's very hard. Right.
And you have to discover that yourself. No one can tell you that.
No.
That's the thing.
But the teacher can just keep, like a shepherd.
Yeah,
Come on, sheep, let's go this way. Keep coming in, you know, like for my students and for myself, you go out. You go out into the outer edges of your own being. And your teacher's saying, come back in to your heart, right? Come back in to where you know yourself. Come back into the stillness. Come back in like to the place where you feel.
I feel like you've alluded to this already, but a great teacher isn't going to just transmit information and tell you what to do. They're going to just embody it in a way. So I'm curious for students or people listening or your students, what do you want them to feel from you? Like what sense of embodiment do you want them to take from you, not just your teachings?
For my own spiritual students, it's the reminder to turn inward all the time, right? To always for that to be the default setting, not to be, oh, well, I need this, I need that, I need to go here, I need to go there, no, we actually don't need anything. And it's a rewiring, it's a relearning that in, not out.
Yes.
So I think if I can impart any kind of wisdom, it's just, my teacher will say, open your heart, feel the flow, surrender, right? So open the heart, keep coming in. This is the place where you're going to feel yourself, right? This is the place where we can, go in. And so it's just, hopefully I'm there to remind them and create the container that they feel safe enough to do that.
Beautiful. Well, Jenn Chiarelli, where can people find you? How can they go to your yoga classes? How can they experience your work? Do you have any
Yes.
retreats coming up?
I do. I'll have Costa Rica coming up in the summer. Dates are coming out soon. I have, I'm starting a guided meditation class very soon up at this place called Chantiful. That'll be donation based. So basically, I'm just going to teach meditation. And I do online classes, which is a little bit deeper, which is my open eye transmission. So that is usually on Saturdays.
Okay.
And that they'll be able to find on my Instagram, most likely. I have a website as well, Anahata Soul.
Well, it has been a privilege and honor.
Oh,
Thank you for sharing space with us and
Thank you.
for teaching and embodying things that
Thank you.
we can really feel.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenn.
It's my honor.
If you like this episode, share it with a friend. For more conversations filled with awe and wonder, be sure to subscribe to the Vitalist podcasts. Till next time.